Imagine being one of the greatest football players on the planet, but you physically cannot step onto an airplane to play in the biggest matches of your life. Every single time Arsenal had a massive European away game, their star player was nowhere near the team plane. Instead, he was sitting alone in a car, driving across entire continents for days just to kick a football. Arsenal is the only absolute giant in English football that has never lifted the UEFA Champions League trophy, and the reason why has nothing to do with bad luck. While teams like Chelsea, Manchester United, and Liverpool found ways to conquer Europe, Arsenal's greatest eras always ended in complete heartbreak on the European stage. The truth is that a mix of bizarre player contracts, tactical stubbornness, and massive financial gambles completely ruined their chances of ever winning the biggest prize in club football. To understand why Arsenal never won the Champions League, you have to look at their absolute peak. The 2004 Arsenal squad is famous for doing something that no other modern English team has ever done. They went an entire 38-game Premier League season without losing a single match. They were called the Invincibles. They had the best striker in the world in Thierry Henry, a powerhouse midfield led by Patrick Vieira, and a rock-solid defense. By all logic, this team should have dominated Europe. But while they were tearing apart English teams, they were completely found out in the Champions League. That very same season, they were dumped out in the quarterfinals by Chelsea. Chelsea was a team that Arsenal had already beaten twice in the league that year. The defeat exposed a massive structural flaw in how Arsenal was built for knockout football. In the Premier League, Arsenal could rely on their superior pace and technical skill to blow smaller teams away over a long season. But the Champions League requires a completely different set of skills. It requires tactical flexibility, defensive pragmatism, and the ability to win ugly. Arsène Wenger, the mastermind behind Arsenal's beautiful passing game, refused to change his style. He believed that saying beautiful football would always win out. That stubbornness became Arsenal's ultimate downfall in Europe. One of the most concrete and bizarre reasons for Arsenal's European failure can be traced back to a single legal clause in a player's contract. They knocked out Real Madrid, Juventus, and Villarreal to reach their first ever Champions League final against Barcelona in Paris. This was the ultimate climax of the club's history. Winning this match would have cemented their status as a true European superpower. Because the final was in Paris, Dennis Bergkamp was able to travel via the Eurotunnel and was sitting on the bench, ready to make a fairy tale impact. But less than 20 minutes into the game, disaster struck. Arsenal goalkeeper Jens Lehmann rushed out of his box and tripped Barcelona forward Samuel Eto'o. The referee showed him a straight red card. Arsenal had to play over 70 minutes with 10 men. Wenger had to substitute off his most creative midfielder, Robert Pires, just to bring on a backup goalkeeper. Because Arsenal had to defend with 10 men, the game required constant running and pressing. Bergkamp, at 37 years old, simply didn't have the legs for that kind of defensive shift. He spent his final match in professional football, sitting on the bench, unable to help. Despite the red card, Arsenal actually took the lead through a Sol Campbell header. They held on to that lead for most of the match, defending heroically, but playing with 10 men for that long takes a massive physical toll. In the final 15 minutes, the players completely ran out of gas. Barcelona scored 2 quick goals to win 2-1. The greatest opportunity Arsenal ever had vanished in a matter of minutes. Losing that final in 2006 wasn't just a sporting tragedy. It marked the end of Arsenal's ability to compete with the financial elite of Europe. At that exact moment in history, Arsenal was finishing construction on the Emirates Stadium. The project cost nearly £400 million, and it required the club to take on massive bank loans. To pay off those debts, Arsenal had to implement a strict self-sustaining financial model. They could no longer afford to pay the massive transfer fees or wages that rivals like Chelsea, Manchester United, and later Manchester City were handing out. Arsenal went from a team that bought superstars to a team that had to sell them. Between 2007 and 2012, they lost Thierry Henry, Cesc Fàbregas, Samir Nasri, Robin van Persie, and Gaël Clichy. Arsenal became trapped in a cycle. They were good enough to qualify for the Champions League every year, but because they lacked world-class depth, they were eliminated in the round of 16 for 7 consecutive seasons. While Arsenal was balancing books, Barcelona and Real Madrid were buying the best players in the world. Arsenal found themselves consistently getting crushed by heavy scores against teams like Bayern Munich and Barcelona because the quality gap had become too wide. The stadium that was supposed to make Arsenal a European superpower ended up crippling their ability to compete on the pitch for over a decade. By the time they fully recovered financially, the Champions League landscape had shifted entirely, leaving them far behind the European elite. When you look at the entire picture, Arsenal never won the Champions League because they were caught between two completely different philosophies. Under Arsène Wenger, they prioritized beauty and financial responsibility over cold, hard winning. They refused to compromise on their style of play. They accommodated unique player limitations like Dennis Bergkamp's travel restriction, and they chose to build a stadium instead of funding a winning squad. They built a club that was loved worldwide for its style, but feared by no one in the late knockout rounds of Europe. The history books show that the Champions League does not reward the team that plays the prettiest football, it rewards the team that refuses to lose. Arsenal learned that lesson the hard way, and it cost them the ultimate prize in football history. Stay a putt if you want to see how another massive football club completely ruined their own chances of winning a trophy because of a single transfer decision.